Donald Trump, every single day, this pedophile, this guy who is finished, child rapist, child molester, wants to sell this war, but every single time it backfires. He has fantasies of winning this war against Iran, minimizing the cost, making sure the Strait of Hormuz is open, which was before the war started. But this guy is becoming more and more lunatic. Pathological liar, quote, incompetent, deeply corrupt. That's how this ex-CIA officer described Donald Trump. Take a listen at this video, but before I move on, not subscribed, consider subscribing to my channel. Have a listen at this one first.
Have you, in negotiations that you have been privy to, ever seen a commander-in-chief say that peace negotiations were ongoing while simultaneously threatening the nation in question with physical force?
No, I don't think anybody ever has. It's clear that there's this toxic mix of traits that Donald Trump has, which is he's a pathological liar, he is incompetent on so many fronts, and he's also deeply corrupt, which I think is now being manifesting itself in terms of the Gulf War. That's why you have these wholly incoherent, wholly inconsistent flailing about, because, first of all, again, there was no real rationale for this war. Secondly, he's trying to figure out what his next move is, and he doesn't understand exactly how he's going to get himself out of this mess. And thirdly, the Iranians now seem to have a lot more influence and cards to play, especially in terms of the Strait of Hormuz and allowing shipping to get out or not. And so therefore, I think Donald Trump is trying to present a false narrative to the American public by saying, yes, the Iranians now seem more reasonable. They're trying to negotiate. But, you know, he's protected himself for so many years in this cocoon of disinformation. But the reality now is just penetrating and taking away that cocoon. And it's very clear in terms of how the war is going. Yes, we're decimating the Iranian military. But in terms of finding an off-ramp or getting out of it, as American consumers see their gas prices rise when they fill up their cars. So across the board, which is why, you know, talking about the No Kings rally, and let's not forget Bruce Springsteen, a New Jersey guy, you know, in Minneapolis.
Jersey corner.
Jersey has issues with that.
But intelligence analysts look for trends. And we see a trend here. And we also look for, okay, if there's a trend of demonstrations of protests, what is fueling it? Is the fuel going away or is the fuel increasing? And both on the domestic front and on the international front, there is more and more fuel that is feeding those fires of protests and demonstrations. And what are these protesters looking toward? Looking toward the November elections. So again, I think the people who are organizing these rallies recognize that there is still several months, you know, before the November elections, and they want to make sure that that momentum is going to continue and that the people are going to feel as though that their voices are making a difference.
Cocoon of disinformation, that's the bubble, that's where Donald Trump lives in. That's exactly what I said. Donald Trump is fantasizing so many things. He is fantasizing now going to Cuba after Iran war is done. I mean, we do not know how long it will take. Looks like this is going to be another endless war, but he's getting bored once he's done with Iran after losing billions, if not trillions of dollars from the taxpayers' money. Then he will go and move on to something else. Cuba, in the past, it was Epstein's files. Obviously, he did not want people to pay any attention to the Epstein file. But guys, this guy is so moronic, such an evil person. He doesn't hesitate to brag about his failures. Such a shameless moron.
I'm struck by intelligence analysts look for trends. That's the trend with the protesters and the people in this country raising their voices. What is the trend then you see from this administration?
Well, I see his. Well, you pointed out the 33% approval rating of Donald Trump. That's a trend. It's a downward trend. It's a bad trend. We see that inflation is going to go up as a result of increased energy prices and across the board. So, you know, I think that the trend is that they are doubling down in Iran, which is unfortunate. Because if they start to deploy troops, they put troops on Iranian soil, it's just going to get worse. And so it seems as though they're digging more and more as a way to justify and validate their initial decision to go in there. And another trend I see, unfortunately, is with Israel. Israel, they're going forward more and more in Lebanon. They passed a law today in the Knesset that they're going to hang Palestinians, you know, who are found guilty, but they're not of murder, but they're not going to hold Israelis to that same requirement. So, it just between.
I mean, 2 journalists were murdered over this morning, over the weekend, in the last 24 to 48 hours. And the Israeli military, the government said that, well, look, those journalists were connected to Hezbollah and they were essentially fronting for the regime, and that's why they had to be taken out. And it feels like a very slippery slope.
Yeah. Well, Netanyahu and Trump, I think, are fueling all of the dissension here in the United States in terms of continuing to move forward on this. And then on the domestic front, obviously,
that is the problem with mainstream media like MS Now. They don't want to put the blame on Israel. Oh, these reporters, by the way, they had connection with Hezbollah. What do you mean by that? And forget about these 3 journalists that they murdered, these Zionist monsters. What about those other journalists that they killed, hundreds of them? And this woman sitting there just sliding in that misinformation just to confuse the viewers. Oh, by the way, these journalists, they were Hezbollah members. They were terrorists. They're Hamas members. So forget about them getting killed. We don't care about these terrorists, right? That's the narrative they want to establish here. Be careful with this mainstream media because Israel is responsible for all of this. Benjamin Netanyahu brought Donald Trump to this war because obviously he has dirty laundry of Donald Trump on him, and he knows how to use this.
The implications, the ramifications of what's going on in the Gulf are going to be felt here across the board. It's not just on energy prices. It's on a lot of other products. The global supply chains are going to be affected. And so the ripple effect is going to be felt for quite some time. So again, when I look out over the next 6 months, toward the elections, I just don't see things going in a positive direction for Donald Trump, which I think worries a lot of people in terms of what might he try to do in order to prevent the inevitable in November.
So I'm going to stay with you, Director Brennan, because I like where you were going on the trends thing. I always love the intelligence piece, the spy side of this equation.
Not you call Director Brennan a spy to his face.
Yeah, we're all friends here. But here's the deal. That trend concept, you talk about it domestically. What trends do you see internationally? What trends do you see in Iran that we should be either concerned about or pay more attention to? When you're looking at our allies and how they're responding, when you're looking at the other pieces out there that seem to take a back seat to Iran right now, like Ukraine, the movement of Russia, that's playing seemingly both sides. I think Putin is punking the hell out of Trump, but that's easy to do. All you have to do is give him an award or say nice things about him, and you get your way. He'll give you $1 billion plus. So, but what trend lines do you see?
Well, on Russia, the trend line is very positive for Vladimir Putin. The price of oil has gone up. Some sanctions have been relieved on Russia, and also Trump has allowed now Russia to provide oil to Cuba.
Yeah, of course. Trump is doing everything that he did not want to do. He's doing everything he wanted to undo. That is the level of moronic he is.
The military calls them AWACS, AWACS. AWACS. It stands for Airborne Warning and Control Systems. This is one. It's called the E3 Sentry. It costs about $300 million. It's called a Sentry because it functions basically as eyes in the sky, that big dome on top, that thing that sits on top of the plane that makes it look like not a normal plane. That's a 30-foot-long rotating radar. It can detect anything airborne within 250 miles from the surface of the Earth all the way up to the stratosphere. We do not have a ton of planes like these, and they are very, very, very expensive. But AWACS are just key to American air dominance in faraway war zones. Well, on Friday, Iran blew one up. Iran carried out a targeted attack on the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. That attack wounded a dozen U.S. troops. It also destroyed this vital and rare and expensive and strategically critical radar aircraft that we don't have very many of. How did it know how to find it? Why wasn't it protected? Why was it out in the open? Over the weekend, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky told NBC News that it wasn't Iran that figured out where that vital U.S. aircraft was sitting there unprotected. It was Russia. In an interview with NBC, Zelensky shared his own briefing from Ukraine intelligence. It showed that Russian satellites had taken images of that airbase in Saudi Arabia, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the week leading up to the strike that injured all those American troops and destroyed that critical plane. Since the start of this war in Iran, we have seen report after report citing U.S. officials and British officials, even German officials, all saying that Russia is helping Iran target U.S. assets, helping Iran target and attack and kill and wound U.S. troops. So how is the United States roaring back at Russia for that? How are we getting them to back off? How are we making them pay for doing that? Not at all. We're not doing anything, quite the opposite. President Donald Trump has instead, inexplicably, twice cut sanctions on Russian oil. And then this weekend, Trump decided to additionally give Russia a big new gift. The U.S. has imposed a blockade on all sorts of fuel to the island nation of Cuba for a couple of months now. But this weekend, for some reason, who knows why, Trump decided to let a Russian oil tanker go right through the blockade, sail on through unmolested to bring oil to Cuba anyway. I mean, Trump's war on Iran has been one question mark after another about the most serious stuff in the world. Tonight, not only is the Strait of Hormuz still unsafe for shipping, but Iran appears to have hit a fully loaded Kuwaiti oil tanker in the port of Dubai. The crew were reportedly unharmed, but they hit the tanker. Meanwhile, this weekend, thousands of troops from the U.S. Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division, the paratroopers, arrived in the Middle East, which means there are more than 50,000 American troops in the region. Trump reportedly wants to send 10,000 more. The latest deployments include large numbers of special operators, including Navy SEALs.
I bet you didn't know this.
Well, it is because he's a pathological liar. It is because he doesn't care about the taxpayers' money. He doesn't have to go to war. Neither his son, Baron Trump, nobody from the family. So yeah, if you are dying, if you are spending your the taxpayers' money for Donald Trump, it's okay, no problem, no big deal.
What are they there for? What is Trump going to tell them to do? What is the point of this war at this time? Joining us now is Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor for President Obama. Ben, it's nice to see you. Thanks very much for being with us tonight.
Hey, Rachel.
So a lot is happening all at once. I feel like there's a few different things I want to ask you about. One is what is going on with the weird favorable treatment to Russia when the intelligence and the open source reporting seems to be getting stronger and stronger about Russia really playing a pivotal role in Iran's ability to hurt American assets and American personnel. But also what's happening, and I'll ask you this first, just with the strategic rationale for what we're doing, the president's incoherence in terms of being able to explain what he's trying to do, and how that matches up with what he's actually doing, which is sending lots more troops.
Well, the reality is, I just don't think he knows what he's doing. It seems like he launched this war thinking that Iran would capitulate quickly and he'd have some quick win like he did when he took out and abducted Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. And anybody that has done any war games or looked at Iran would know that that would not be the case, that this is a deep regime that would resist and that would lash out across the region as they have. And the war thus far has been a strategic disaster, Rachel. I mean, let's just talk about Russia since you teed it up in your introduction there. Vladimir Putin benefits because the price of oil is up. That is money in his pocket because that's what Russia relies on for revenue. Russia has been given a waiver from U.S. sanctions so they can sell more oil at a higher price and make even more money. The Ukrainians, in an effort to be good citizens, are sharing some of their own drone defenses with the Gulf Arabs because they're getting bombarded by the same Iranian drones that were used in Ukraine. That's not good.
Also understand this, not only that Russia is getting sanctioned relief from Donald Trump, Iran is also getting sanctioned relief from Donald Trump. So yeah, all of his enemies he's fighting against, he's now helping them make more money. This guy, I mean, this casino loser, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Nations that are purportedly allied with the United States are demanding that Donald Trump have U.S. forces engage in a ground invasion of Iran. These Arab nations are saying, you can't leave this region unless you obliterate Iran, because if you leave and Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz, and if Iran is stronger than ever, which they are now, you are going to be leaving all of your purported Arab nation allies being left far more vulnerable. And the security umbrella that the United States promised is over. Those quid pro quos, those pay-for-play schemes, Donald, they are over. And these Arab nations are saying they're going to go elsewhere. Here's the breaking news late at night that has Donald Trump a panicking. The United Arab Emirates, supported by Bahrain, Kuwait, and also Saudi Arabia, pushing hard for Donald Trump to order a ground invasion of Iran. Mind you, these nations aren't going to provide their own ground forces, as officials from many Gulf allies of the United States, again, including Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, have conveyed in private conversations that they don't want the ongoing military operation to end until there are significant changes in the Iranian leadership or there's a dramatic shift in Iran's behavior, diplomatic officials told the Associated Press. I mean, just over the past 12 hours, you had an oil tanker off the coast of Dubai get hit by Iran. You've had major infrastructure in Kuwait be destroyed by Iran. Iran continues to strike in Israel, recently hitting an oil depot in Haifa, continues to strike Bahrain, continues to hit critical infrastructure and military bases in Saudi Arabia. And then earlier today, during a press conference, Donald Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt's like, we're going to have the Arab nations pay for this war. We're going to roll out that plan. I mean, yeah, we invaded the region with Netanyahu without telling the Arab nation allies that, bought Donald Trump private planes and put up Trump hotels in their countries and funneled hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to Trump Bitcoin and crypto and other Trump ventures like World Liberty Financial. But we're going to make the Arab nations pay for it. Meanwhile,
trying to flip the script. Donald Trump, his administration, they're trying to flip the script. It is United States that will pay for this war to these Gulf countries. It's not going to be a reparation because the reparation is demanded by Iran. But these other Gulf countries, they would not let U.S. to pack up and leave unless and until they make sure that they are investing the investment money that they spend on United States economy is getting completely its return. Until that happens, if Qatar donated or gifted Donald Trump $1 million worth of a jet, they're going to take it back maybe, or they can get it back in some other way. Maybe not the jet itself, but the money. They will make sure that the United States pay them for the damages, for the losses. Needless to say, these Gulf countries, these citizens, these people there, they cannot have a good night's sleep because of those ballistic missiles coming their way.
The Iranian parliament earlier today.
This robotic puppy is so lifelike, it actually fooled my...
Therefore, guys, we are going to be seeing some absolute dramatic escalation, even tension between United States
a bill
and these Gulf countries
to levy fees on the Strait of Hormuz transit, at least $2 million for any ship to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. This was voted on by the Iranian parliament. So as Donald Trump's like, we've totally obliterated them. They're utterly destroyed. They don't exist anymore. Their parliament met and held a formal meeting where they passed a law to fully take control over the Strait of Hormuz in their
Strait of Hormuz. They also have imposed toll. Any ship pass by that strait will now have to pay a certain amount of toll. And Iran looks like to me is they're already making a final decision on this in the parliament, and they're going to implement that very soon and make tons of money. So in addition to the oil that they're exporting, because the U.S. has unsanctioned Iranian oil, they're now making money from these tolls.
As Israel and America's war with Iran enters its fifth week, the U.S. is now being accused by Tehran of plotting an invasion. It comes after these images of U.S. Marines sent to the region were released by the Pentagon. Iran is warning the regime will rain fire on American troops if they attack. Around 3,500 U.S. Marines and soldiers have now arrived in the Persian Gulf awaiting final orders. Meanwhile, the U.S. and Israel have continued airstrikes on Iran, including in Tehran, where the offices of a Qatari news channel were hit. But Iran has again hit back, targeting Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. And in Israel, a fire broke out at an industrial site to the south of Beersheba after an Iranian missile strike. With the very latest is our world news correspondent, Joe Inwood.
So again, unbelievable stuff going on with this mad dog, this lunatic president, the pedo, the rapist. Subscribe for more videos. Let me know your comments.